This is where it's spec'd out to have the door. The drawing doesn't show the extended tongue on there, but that really wasn't. Welcome back to Walking into the Sunset, and welcome to episode 3. If you like what I'm doing here, please take a chance to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. Again, it doesn't cost you anything to like and subscribe or even ring that bell, but it sure does help us here on YouTube. So, we got the trailer. Safe in the storage yard, ready to start. Of course, it's still at this time, it's pretty cold out still, and there's not a lot going on getting going with the trailer, except for the planning and the build out of some of the components, ordering things. All that stuff's going to take a ton of time, so it might be good there's some good cold weather anyway. So let's talk about some of the things in the trailer build here. Let's start, of course, with the weight of the trailer. Okay, so shortly after the trailer came in, about a week later, I went over and I picked it up when there wasn't as much snow on the ground and there wasn't snow on the trailer. And I took it over to our local CAT scale, and you can see here the trailer axle weight of 2820. Now, I kind of really irritated some of our truckers at the CAT scale. But what I did is I pulled on the CAT scale. I took some help with me so I could make it as quick as possible. And I disconnected the truck and I got the truck pulled forward onto the steer and drive axle parts of the scale. And then the trailer was setting on the scale by itself. And you can see the starting weight for the trailer was actually less by 200 pounds than what we had expected in the original build. Now, when I talked to R&R about that, they said, yeah, the weight of the trailers are really that they spec out vary, depending on what you add, what you take away. And, I did add windows and maybe that took enough away. I got aluminum rims instead of steel rims. I don't know, but I'm really happy with that starting weight of 2820. It gives me just a little bit extra room. So here we are. We've got our trailer. This is my crude drawing of what the inside of the trailer looks like empty. You see things like this indicates right here where the fenders are, so I could get a good idea of what I was dealing with there in design. Here you will see where I spec'd out an escape window. Here's the other escape window. In this green right here, this is where I spec'd out to have the door. The drawing doesn't show the extended tongue on there, but that really wasn't important for the design. So I had started this design process thinking that, like so many trailers, up here is the area where I wanted the bathroom. Wanted the bathroom up here because I see so many in the V-nose, and then I was going to build it back, have the living area in here, have the bathroom maybe back here. It's still, I was very unsure. The one thing I did know that moving this door back where I moved the door back was going to give me many more options. If I did decide to build a wall across here, say for instance, and put the bathroom up here, now the door's back further towards the back and I'm not going to have to deal with having a door that's right up in here. So here is the plan that I kind of settled on, and actually it's kind of the plan that was stuck to during most of the build. As you will see, the doors here, of course, and this leaves this huge area up here kind of as a living space. What I had planned was you put a TV here, maybe you build a desk in here to work. Now you've got all this area up here for what I'm going to think at some point is going to be a couple recliners. I didn't want a bed in this build. A bed is really not what I was looking for. I sleep just as well in a recliner as I do a bed. And I also use a BiPAP machine at night, a breathing machine for sleep apnea. So that will play in a little bit later too when it comes into the electrical system designs. But I can always add a bed, I can change things. What was important to me is that I left this huge area up here. Over 1/3 of the trailer is going to be open, is like a multi-purpose room to do whatever I need to do with this area, which to me was very important. So this area right here, this is what we will call the electrical room. This area will house on the very bottom level the 12-volt battery system. The next level will house the power stations, which we will get into that in a little bit. The next level will be for storing things for the trips. Top level will be for clothes. So the upper 2 levels, and this will be floor to ceiling, will actually go all the way up, and they will house all the different things that we need on the trips. Over here you see this wall actually here, this forward, this is the kitchen area. So you have your 2 countertops, you have a sink over, there's a sink over here, countertops going around. So it's a pretty good sized kitchen area, and the kitchen counter is actually going to be a pretty high kitchen counter. We'll get into the reason why for that later. Going back, this area here, this is a toilet room essentially. This is going to be one of the areas where we have a raised floor. And we will touch base on that in just a few minutes here, why a raised floor. But this is going to be a Dometic 320 porcelain toilet. This is going to be a really nice setup. Then back here, one of my favorite parts. This area back here, this is the shower area. So this will actually, right here, have a 32 by 32 inch residential shower. It's a Musty shower. Company out of Ohio that's been making these things forever. It comes as a complete kit. You buy the kit, and it's going to be a real challenge to get it in, but we'll get it in. And then this is what I'm going to call the garage area. This will be storage for the spare tire back here, tools, parts, accessories. And right here below the window will be where a chest style refrigerator goes, leaving a little room here for a shelf or another refrigerator. And it was important to me to locate this here because I wanted it right next to the power to get good power, no voltage drop on that refrigerator. So there we go. We kind of got the rough outline and the plan. So the first thing on the agenda was the insulation. And like most cargo trailers, I decided to go with the insulation board, whether it's the pink or the green or the Lowe's or wherever you get it. I decided to go that route. And the good thing is this trailer was a little unique than most of the cargo trailers because I had a full 2 inches to deal with on the ceiling to be able to get insulation. So I really didn't need to worry about dropping the ceiling, although I understand the whole thing with thermal bridging, etc. on the walls, on the ceiling, and I get it. And I know it's important, but so is the weight of the trailer. And adding furring strip to all the walls and all the ceiling not only reduces the interior space of the trailer, but I'm not sure it's worth it. I'm not sure I'm going to reduce the thermal bridging that much to make it worth the loss of the space and the additional weight. Now, I might regret that down the road. And the same thing, I'm not going to insulate the floor. And a lot of people will probably argue with that, but I can always add the insulation under the trailer if I choose to. But I'm not really looking for extreme temperatures with this trailer. If I'm in extreme temperatures, I'd just soon be home. Or if somewhere down the line I decide to be full-time or three-quarter time, whatever, I will chase 72 degrees. But I don't want to be in extreme temperatures. That's not my goal. I can be home or a home base someplace for the extreme temperatures. As far as the hardware goes, as we start putting this together, I did my research in my years of working in the trades. I was fairly familiar with stainless steel and what to use. I also had a sailboat for several years, so I became familiar with stainless steel there. And I knew for this build that I wanted to use 3/16 stainless wherever I could. 3/16 stainless, I should say, not 3/16, but 3/16 stainless. I think 99% of it, I think I used 304 stainless for a couple of hard to find items. So I went down a grade, but it's all either 304 or 3/16 stainless. The walls, nothing fancy. The OSB on the walls for me is just fine. That's what I went with. And paint. Just going to put really good paint on it. Not cheap paint, but lots of primer, lots of real good paint. You get to see that. The floors, same thing. I don't want to raise the floor. I don't want to add a lot of weight to the trailer for something that's really not that important and it isn't as durable. So what I decided to do is go with Rock Solid by Rust-Oleum. Rock Solid, I'm pretty sure that's the name of it. Garage floor paint. It's 20 times harder than epoxy. It's incredible, and I'm really happy with it, and I'm glad I went with it, and you'll get to see that being put on. Plumbing. Now, I'm not a plumber. Worked with a lot of plumbers over the years, and I know a lot of plumbers to help get advice. But the plumbing was something that really was interesting and where I'm going to depart from what a lot of people are going to do. For one thing, I didn't want any holding tanks underneath the trailer. When I first started this out, my concept was I'd have a gray water tank, I'd have fresh water, and then I wanted to do a cassette toilet that could be removed from the outside. And then I found out during the planning phases that for BLM properties, for National Forestry, you have to stay within 500 foot of a vault toilet if you don't have a minimum of a 10-gallon black tank. With that being said, then I scrambled to find a way to fit a 10-gallon black tank into this build. And I did find a way to build it into the build, and it's one of the floors that I'll have to raise. I don't want any tanks under the trailer for various reasons. During the years I had RVs, I've had black tanks hit, I've had them leak, I've had all sorts of issues with road debris getting up and getting them. I know you can build shields, but they're going to take space under. And also, if I want my trailer to not be 4 seasons now, I'm not trying to build that, and I'm not so sure there's any trailer that's 4 seasons without using a lot of power to make it 4 seasons for tank heaters. So my goal is to make it 3 seasons and to make it resistant to 38 or 36 degree temperatures. So in this build, you will see all my tanks, black, gray, and freshwater, are going to be internal to the build. Of course, I wanted a full-size shower. That was very important. And I wanted the porcelain toilet. After I had dropped the idea of the cassette toilet, of course, I figured if I can't have the cassette toilet, I'm going to have a porcelain toilet, and that's why then the Dometic 320. I knew I wanted a large sink in the kitchen. That was very important to have a large sink because it was going to be the only sink in the plumbing system in the trailer. I'm a big believer in you can do everything you need in one sink. I know a lot of people won't like that, but again, back to weight, efficiency, cost, and having the one sink as long as it's a large sink is a great idea, I believe. Hot water, of course, is a must. So yes, there's going to be a hot water heater. And I decided to do the plumbing system in PEX A. PEX is a whole new experience for me. And why PEX A? Well, there was a lot of reasons, and I got to buy a PEX A tool. And any of you that know retired tradespeople, we like to buy tools if we get a chance. So it was an excuse to buy a cool tool. So I did get the electric DeWalt PEX A tool, and the PEX A is just an amazing system to install. You know, almost every RV, every cargo trailer build, most will say 90% are employing the use of propane some way. I don't want propane. Propane is not renewable because, of course, my goal is to use renewable energy completely. And if I got to go fill propane all the time, that's not what I want to do. I want to be able to use the power of the sun or a generator if I have to, but that's not what I want to do. I want to be able to use solar to provide all my power. So propane was not something that I even factored into this at all. So I'm going to have to heat. I'm going to have to heat water. I'm going to have to do all those things without propane. So that opened a whole new set of challenges in this build. Last but not least, the electrical system. My favorite part of this entire build, and probably the part of the build I spent the most time considering and working out. The one thing I knew from the very beginning is I wanted two distinctly different systems. I wanted a 12-volt system and I wanted a 120-volt system completely separate of one another, completely autonomous, not tied together in any way. Well, Rich, that seems like a lot of work and a lot of extra components and parts. Yes, it's definitely going to be a lot of work and a lot of extra components, but sustainability was important for me in designing fail-safes into the electrical system because in my thought, the electrical system, especially when you're boondocking, probably is even a little bit more important than what the water system is, especially when you're somebody that depends on electrical to sleep at night like I do with a BiPAP machine. So I had to make sure that I had that ability, and of course for refrigeration too. So the other thing I considered was conversion losses. So, okay, probably the best thing you can do when you're designing an electrical system in an RV is to have a 48 or a 24 volt system. It's more efficient. It stores power, watts better. And the conversion to in your inverter is a lot more efficient. Yeah, great. But then what you've got to do is you've got to convert that 48 or 24 back to 12 volt. And there are losses there. It's not a step-down transformer. It is a voltage divider, and there are losses anytime you take DC and you create a lower voltage DC. There's a loss there, and I didn't want that loss. So I decided to have a completely autonomous 12-volt system, decided on 300 amp hour was where I was going to start with a design to bring more in battery-wise if I needed to. And we'll cover more on the electrical system, specifically how I designed that out. But I also decided it was on and off at the start what I was going to use in the components around it. But I did decide to go with Victron in the end. And we will cover all that as we go. For my 120 volt system, which again is completely autonomous from the 12 volt system, there are some links and ties, but it's only to cross charge. I should add that. My 120 volt system is using the EcoFlow Delta Pro power station and extra batteries. So I can get a total of 7.2 kilowatt hours with my standard setup, and I do have the extra battery, the second extra battery, so I get 10.8 kilowatt hours from my EcoFlow Delta Pros. That's a lot of power. You can do a lot with that. You can run air conditioners, hot water heaters, you can do all sorts of things. Of course, then you've got to recharge it. And we will get into the recharging uh, and how we're going to design that. But right now, we're going to stick to the basics here. Let me add a couple more things to the electrical plan. It was also very, very important to me that I didn't bury any wiring in the walls whatsoever, or the ceiling, whether it be for lights or anything. I wanted all my wiring accessible. Now, for a lot of people, it's going to be like, how do you put ceiling lights, etc., in without burying wires in the ceiling? You're going to get to see how I did it. And it was, in some cases, pretty unique the way I dealt with the issues of not burying things in the ceiling. You got to remember that trailers going down the road, whether they're RVs, trailers, Class A's, no matter what they are rolling, shattering earthquakes. And they are full of metal, sharp edges, and very fragile wire. And that wire is really susceptible to cutting. And if it's buried and you can't get to it, now you've got a whole other issue to deal with, and I didn't want to deal with that over the long term. So in many cases, I will be using surface raceways and a few other unique ways of getting wiring through the trailers to its point of use. So stay tuned for that. I think you're going to like that. So that kind of covers the basics for the electrical system. There are going to be a lot more things that I'm going to have in that as we go. A lot of things I changed my mind as I went, but what I just have is pretty much the bones of the plan, and it is going to be a unique build, especially the electrical system. So that about does it for episode 3. I'm really glad you joined me on this adventure, and I hope you come back and see many more episodes, and we have a lot more episodes coming up as we build this trailer out. So once again, I'd like to ask you, please like, subscribe, and hit that bell. It really does help. So, as always, thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you the next time on Walking into the Sunset.